The crutch hits marble with a scrape that cuts through the morning chatter like a blade. Reese Callahan doesn't look up. He learned months ago that eye contact invites cruelty, and today his swollen belly pushes hard against his shirt buttons, impossible to hide. The fabric stretches tight across the curve, announcing what everyone already whispers about behind cupped hands and fake smiles. "Oh God, look at him," someone says from the finance desk. The voice belongs to Sable Harrington, sharp enough to draw blood from 20 feet away. "Pregnant and crippled, that's just pathetic." Laughter ripples across the open office floor of Crownstone Holdings, not the kind that comes from joy, the kind that feeds on someone else's pain. Reese shifts his weight, his bad leg screaming as he moves toward the copy room. Each step sends a jolt up his spine, but he's learned to swallow the sound before it reaches his throat. The steel crutch bears most of his weight now, has for weeks, ever since the pregnancy made everything worse. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. The office smells like expensive coffee and cheaper perfume. Glass walls separate the cubicles from the executive suites above, where men in darker suits make decisions that end careers before lunch. Reese used to think the transparency meant honesty. He knows better now. Glass just makes it easier to watch people fall. Somebody should tell him to stay home. Another voice adds, this one male, coming from the marketing pod. Nobody wants to see that waddle every morning. More laughter, sharper this time. Reese's fingers tighten on the crutch handle until his knuckles go white. He focuses on the copy room door 15 feet ahead. 15 feet might as well be 15 miles when your body fights you with every movement, when your belly pulls you forward and your leg refuses to cooperate, when the weight of eyes on your back feels heavier than the child you're carrying. The pendant hanging beneath his shirt burns against his chest. Hidden, secret, a thin silver chain holding a truth that could turn this building into a war zone. He reaches for the door handle. Wait, watch this, Sable says, loud enough that her voice carries across the entire floor. Reese freezes. Something dark and wet spreads across the marble directly in his path. Coffee, fresh, deliberate. The puddle sits between him and the door, steam still rising from the liquid. He didn't hear anyone approach, didn't hear the cup tip, but the evidence gleams under the fluorescent lights, a trap laid out in plain sight. Oops, Sable sings out, her smile audible even though Reese still won't turn around. How clumsy of me. His heart pounds against his ribs. The baby shifts inside him, a flutter of movement that reminds him why he endures this, why he can't fight back, why he limps through these hallways day after day, swallowing humiliation like medicine. He tries to step around the spill. His crutch plants on dry marble, his good leg follows, but his bad leg, the one that never healed right after the stairs, after his stepfather's hands, after his mother chose a man over her own son, his bad leg catches on nothing but its own weakness. Reese goes down hard. His crutch clatters away, spinning across the floor. His hands shoot out to catch himself, but his belly throws off his balance. He lands on his side with a sound that punches all the air from his lungs. The impact sends a shock wave through his body, and for one terrifying second, he can't tell if the pain is from the fall or from something deeper, something worse. The office erupts. Not with concern, with entertainment. People pull out phones, someone whistles. The laughter builds like a wave, crashing over him while he lies there, cheek pressed to cold marble, one hand wrapped protectively around his stomach. "Oh my God, did you see that?" A woman's voice, delighted. "He went down like a sack of potatoes." "Somebody get HR," a man says, but he's laughing too. "We can't have whales beaching themselves in the office." Reese's throat burns, his eyes sting, but he learned years ago that tears only make predators hungrier. He pushes himself up on shaking arms, trying to find his crutch, trying to breathe through the pain radiating from his hip and the sharper, deeper ache in his abdomen. That's when he hears it. "I hope the baby doesn't survive." The words come from somewhere behind him, spoken just loud enough to be heard but quiet enough to deny. They slice through the laughter like a knife, precise and purposeful. Reese's hands freeze on the marble, his whole body goes still. Around him, the laughter continues. Nobody else heard it. Or maybe they did and they just don't care. Maybe cruelty has become so normal in Crownstone Holdings that wishing death on an unborn child barely registers anymore. He finally gets his crutch back under him and pulls himself upright. His shirt has ridden up during the fall, exposing the curve of his belly to everyone watching. He tugs the fabric down with numb fingers, his face burning hot despite the Arctic chill spreading through his chest. Sable leans against her desk, arms crossed, satisfaction written across her perfect features. Her hair falls in glossy waves over her shoulders. Her suit probably costs more than Reese makes in a month. She looks like success, like power, like someone who's never known what it means to beg the universe for mercy and receive none. She looks at Reese the way his stepfather used to look at him, like he's an obstacle, like he's breakable, like the breaking might even be fun. "You should be more careful," Sable says, her voice dripping false concern, "in your condition." The words hang in the air, a threat wrapped in silk. Reese's phone buzzes in his pocket. He pulls it out with trembling hands. The notification makes his blood run cold. Executive floor alert. CEO Varic conducting surprise floor inspection. ETA 10 minutes. The pendant burns hotter against his chest. Reese's fingers move to touch it through his shirt, a habit he can't break, a comfort he can't afford. 10 minutes. Varic hasn't set foot on the main office floor in 8 months. Not since the night Reese's heat came early. Not since the vault. Not since everything changed. If Varic sees him like this, belly exposed, humiliated, marked by coffee stains and cruel laughter. Reese's lips move, barely a whisper, the words meant only for himself but somehow escaping anyway. "If he sees me like this, everything will burn." Should Reese hide before the CEO arrives, or will fate force them face to face? The restroom door slams behind Reese hard enough to rattle the frame. His crutch skids on wet tile, and he catches himself against the sink, breathing in ragged gasps that fog the mirror in front of him. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow that makes his reflection look half-dead. He runs cold water over his shaking hands. Coffee stains spread across his shirt in brown continents, marking him, branding him, advertising his humiliation to anyone with eyes. 8 minutes until Varic arrives. Reese's fingers find the pendant again, pressing it hard enough that the edges bite into his palm through the fabric. The metal is warm from his body heat, a small circle of silver that contains enough truth to destroy everything. He knows who the father is. Everyone in Crownstone thinks Reese got knocked up by some nameless alpha, some one-night mistake he's too ashamed to identify. They think he's alone, desperate, pathetic enough to trap someone with a pregnancy and fail even at that. They have no idea. The memory hits him like a physical blow, dragging him back 3 months to a night that still doesn't feel real. The document vault after hours, empty, silent except for the rain hammering against windows 20 floors up. Reese had been sorting merger files, the kind of tedious work they gave to clerks nobody expected to rise higher. His heat suppressants were supposed to last another week. They didn't. The first wave hit him behind a row of metal filing cabinets, sudden and vicious, dropping him to his knees before he could even think about running. His skin went hot. His sense spiked. Every nerve in his body started screaming for something he couldn't name, something primal and terrifying and absolutely forbidden in a place like this. He tried to stay quiet, tried to breathe through it, tried to remember the techniques from the Omega health class they'd made him take when he turned 18. None of it worked. That's when the vault door opened. Reese didn't see him at first, just felt the change in the air, the sudden weight of presence, the way his Omega instincts went from painful to desperate in the span of a heartbeat. Then the scent hit him. Alpha, pure, powerful, the kind that bypasses conscious thought and speaks directly to the hindbrain. The part that still remembers when survival meant submission, when protection came at a price, when nature decided fate instead of choice. "Who's there?" The voice cut through the haze, cold, controlled, completely at odds with the scent that was currently unraveling Reese's sanity one thread at a time. Reese couldn't answer, could barely think. His body was making decisions his mind hadn't agreed to, producing sounds he didn't recognize, responding to stimuli he couldn't control. Footsteps approached, measured, unhurried. Then Varic rounded the filing cabinet and stopped. Reese saw it happen in real time, the moment Varic's pupils dilated, the way his jaw locked, the slight flare of his nostrils as Reese's heat scent hit him full force. The CEO looked different up close, younger than the distant figure Reese had glimpsed in board meetings, sharper, more dangerous. His suit was black and perfect, his dark hair swept back from a face that might have been carved from stone except for his eyes. His eyes changed when he smelled Reese. Something flickered there, something almost like recognition, though that made no sense. They'd never spoken, barely occupied the same spaces. "You need to leave," Reese managed, the words coming out broken and desperate. "Please, I can't, you have to." But Varic didn't move, didn't look away. His hands curled into fists at his sides like he was fighting something invisible, something powerful, something that was winning despite his obvious resistance. "You're going to get hurt if I walk away," Varic said finally, his voice lower now rougher. "The night security are alphas. They'll smell you. They'll—" He didn't finish, didn't need to. Reese knew what happened to Omegas in Heat who couldn't afford private care, who didn't have packs to protect them, who made the mistake of being vulnerable in places where vulnerability meant prey. "I don't want this," Reese whispered, even as his body betrayed him, even as his heat intensified in response to Varic's proximity. "Please, I don't." "Neither do I." The words came out sharp, honest, almost angry. But Varic stepped closer anyway. And Reese's last coherent thought before the heat swallowed him completely was that the CEO looked devastated. Reese blinks back to the present, his hands white-knuckled on the sink edge. He woke up 12 hours later in a penthouse suite he didn't recognize. Alone, sore, marked with bruises shaped like fingerprints and bites that would take weeks to fade. Someone had cleaned him, dressed him in clothes that weren't his, left a bottle of expensive heat recovery medication on the nightstand, along with a glass of water and 2 painkillers. No note, no explanation, no apology. Just evidence of what happened and a clear message: this conversation is over. Reese had stumbled out of the penthouse in borrowed clothes, taken 3 trains home, and tried to convince himself it had been a nightmare, just a bad heat dream, just his mind playing tricks. But 2 weeks later, the nausea started, then the exhaustion, then the positive test he took in a gas station bathroom because he couldn't afford to go to a real clinic. He stared at those 2 lines until his vision blurred, until the implications crashed over him in waves too big to process. Because he remembered Varic's scent, remembered it so clearly it might as well have been branded into his memory. There was no one else it could be. His heat had lasted hours, yes, but he'd been with one person, only one. The coldest man in the city, Alpha CEO, rumored syndicate king. The father of his child. Reese turns on the faucet again, splashing cold water on his face. The pendant swings free from his collar, catching light. He cups it in one palm, studying the mark stamped into the silver. A signet ring impression. Left on his wrist that night, pressed so hard into his skin during a moment he can't quite remember that it transferred its design, created a bruise shaped like proof. Reese had gone to 3 different jewelers before he found one who recognized it. A private maker, exclusive clientele, the kind of ring that costs more than most people make in a year and announces exactly who its wearer is to anyone who knows how to read the symbols. He'd had a replica made, wears it every day, a reminder, a secret, a truth that could end him if anyone ever connected the dots. 6 minutes until Varic arrives on the floor. Reese's phone buzzes again. He checks it with numb fingers. Building security alert. Vault files from March 15th have been requested for CEO review. March 15th. The night it happened. Reese's breath stops in his chest. His fingers tighten on the pendant until the edges cut into his palm. Varic knows, has always known. Must have checked the logs, seen Reese's name, put together a timeline that leads to one inescapable conclusion. And now he's coming. The restroom door handle turns. Reese shoves the pendant back under his shirt, his heart hammering so hard he can hear it in his ears. But it's just another clerk, someone from accounting who takes one look at Reese's coffee-stained clothes and swollen eyes and backs out without a word. 4 minutes. Reese grips his crutch and forces himself toward the door. He can't hide forever, can't disappear just because the man whose child he's carrying decided to finally acknowledge his existence. He steps back into the main office just as the elevator chimes. The entire floor goes silent. Because Varic Hale doesn't visit, doesn't do casual inspections, doesn't waste time on the lower levels where clerks and analysts do the grunt work that keeps his empire running. Which means this isn't casual. The elevator doors slide open with a whisper of expensive machinery. And Reese, still clutching his crutch, still marked with coffee stains and bruises, still carrying a secret that weighs more than the child in his belly, whispers the words he's been holding back for 3 months. I'm carrying the man the city fears. Will Varic recognize Reese in front of everyone, or will he pretend they're strangers? Pain wakes Reese at 3 a.m. most mornings, but tonight it's worse. He lies in his studio apartment, one hand pressed to his belly, the other gripping the edge of his second-hand mattress hard enough that his fingers ache. The baby shifts inside him, a flutter that used to bring comfort but now just reminds him how much his body is fighting against itself. His bad leg throbs with a deep, bone-level ache that no amount of over-the-counter medication can touch. The pregnancy weight throws off his balance, puts pressure on joints that were already damaged, turns every step into a negotiation between will and physics. He reaches for his crutch leaning against the nightstand. The metal is cold under his palm. Familiar. He's been using it for 5 years now, ever since the night his life split cleanly into before and after. The stairs had been hardwood, polished. His stepfather Marcus had just gotten home from the bar, smelling like whiskey and rage, looking for an excuse. Any excuse. Reese had been 17, still believing his mother would intervene, still stupid enough to think blood meant protection. "You think you're better than me?" Marcus had grabbed Reese's arm, yanked him toward the stairwell in their cramped apartment building. "Walking around here like you own the place, like your omega stink doesn't make me sick." "I wasn't." Reese had tried to pull away, tried to use words instead of force because force never worked with Marcus, not when the man outweighed him by 80 pounds and had the kind of alpha strength that made physics irrelevant. "Don't talk back to me." The shove came fast, casual, like Marcus was moving furniture instead of his girlfriend's son. Reese's feet left the ground. For one suspended moment he was weightless, floating, almost free. Then gravity remembered its job and he was falling, tumbling down 12 concrete steps that turned his spine into a percussion instrument, each impact a new note of agony. He'd landed at the bottom in a heap, unable to breathe, unable to scream, unable to do anything but lie there while his body tried to figure out which parts were broken and which were just shattered. Marcus had looked down from the top of the stairs, not concerned, not even particularly interested. That's what happens when you don't watch where you're going. Then he'd gone back inside. Reese's mother found him 40 minutes later, called an ambulance, rode with him to the hospital, held his hand while doctors told him about vertebrae and nerve damage and words like permanent and adaptation. But when Marcus showed up at the hospital 3 hours later, apologetic and sober, spinning a story about Reese being clumsy, about accidents happening, about teenage omegas being dramatic, Reese's mother had nodded, agreed, backed her boyfriend's version of events with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Because keeping Marcus meant keeping the apartment meant surviving. And survival, she'd explained later in a voice like broken glass, sometimes requires choosing the stronger option. The option that wasn't Reese. 6 months of physical therapy taught him to walk again, sort of, with assistance, with pain that never quite disappeared and a limp that announced his weakness to anyone watching. His mother still lives with Marcus. They got married last year. Reese got a text invitation to the wedding. He didn't respond. Now at 3 a.m. in his studio apartment, Reese pulls himself upright with practiced movements. His crutch takes most of his weight. His good leg does what it can. His bad leg just tries not to collapse. The bathroom is 8 feet away. It takes him 3 minutes to get there. The fluorescent light flickers on, harsh and unforgiving. Reese catches his reflection in the mirror above the sink and barely recognizes himself. His face looks hollowed out, shadowed by exhaustion and stress. His belly pushes against his sleep shirt, stretching the fabric tight. The bruises on his arms from yesterday's fall have darkened to deep purple continents. He runs water, splashes his face, tries to wake up enough to function. His phone sits on the sink counter, screen glowing with a notification he's been ignoring for 3 days. High-risk pregnancy alert, patient Callahan, mandatory follow-up required. The doctor had been gentle when she'd explained it. Gentle but firm, using words like complications and bed rest and probability. "Your spine injury creates additional pressure," she'd said, pointing to scans that Reese couldn't interpret but understood anyway. "The pregnancy is already high risk. Combined with your mobility issues, we're looking at increased chances of premature labor, placental problems, potential harm to both you and the baby." "What do I do?" Reese had asked, already knowing the answer, already knowing he couldn't afford to follow it. "Rest, complete rest if possible, reduce stress, avoid physical strain." Right, rest, in a city where rent consumes 70% of his paycheck, in a job where calling in sick means losing the insurance that pays for his prenatal appointments, in a building where his coworkers treat his existence like entertainment. Rest is a luxury reserved for people who have safety nets, people with families, people whose mothers didn't choose their abusers over their children, people who aren't carrying the child of a man who walked away without looking back. Reese picks up his phone, deletes the notification, and makes his way back to bed. Sleep doesn't come, it never really does anymore. He lies there, one hand on his belly, feeling the baby shift and settle, and tries not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. By 5 a.m., he gives up on sleep entirely, gets dressed in the dark, pulls on clothes that no longer fit quite right, that announce his condition to anyone with eyes, straps his crutch to his arm and makes his way down 4 flights of stairs because the elevator in his building broke 6 months ago and the landlord stopped pretending he'd fix it. Each step sends shocks up his bad leg. Each landing feels like a small victory. By the time he reaches the street, sweat has soaked through his shirt despite the morning chill. The train to Crownstone takes 40 minutes. Reese finds a seat near the door, grateful for the early hour, grateful for the relative emptiness that means fewer eyes on him, fewer whispers about the pregnant cripple taking up space. His phone buzzes. He checks it, expecting spam, finding instead a message from an unknown number. "You shouldn't be working in your condition." Reese's blood runs cold. He stares at the words, trying to place them, trying to figure out who has his number, who's watching close enough to know what condition he's in. Another message appears before he can respond. Rest is not optional, it's survival. The train lurches to a stop. Reese shoves his phone in his pocket, grabs his crutch and forces himself to standing. His hands shake, his heart pounds, because there's only one person who could know about his medical situation without him saying a word. Only one person who has the resources to track a nobody clerk's private health information. Only one person who might actually care whether Reese lives or dies. The doors slide open. Morning light floods the car. Reese steps onto the platform, his crutch scraping against concrete, his bad leg screaming, his mind racing through implications he can't afford to consider. At Crownstone, rest is a luxury he doesn't have. But apparently, someone thinks he should. Who sent the messages, and what do they want from Reese? The fake pregnancy brochure appears on Reese's desk at 9:17 a.m. He almost doesn't see it at first, buried under the stack of merger contracts he's supposed to review by noon, but the glossy paper catches the fluorescent light wrong, standing out like a bruise against the manila folders. Reese pulls it out with careful fingers. The cover shows a smiling Omega in expensive maternity wear, one hand on her perfect belly, the other wrapped around an alpha in a business suit. The title is printed in cheerful pink letters, "Securing Your Future, How to Choose the Right Alpha Father." Someone has added notes in red marker, helpful annotations, constructive criticism. Step 1, get pregnant with a checkmark. Step 2, identify wealthy target with another checkmark. Step 3, secure commitment, with a big red X and the word failed written in capital letters. Reese's hands start shaking before he can stop them. He crumples the brochure, shoving it into his bag where no one else can see the evidence of his humiliation. But the damage is done. His face burns hot. His throat tightens. Across the office floor, someone laughs, not even bothering to hide it. He knows who's responsible. Knows without looking that Sable is probably watching him right now, waiting for his reaction, feeding on his pain like it's entertainment. Reese forces himself to focus on the contracts in front of him. Words blur together. Legal terms that usually make sense turn into alphabet soup. He reads the same paragraph 4 times before giving up. His phone buzzes, another message from the unknown number. File 6247 is missing. Reese's blood goes cold. He sorts through his desk drawers, checks his bag, rechecks the stack of folders on his workspace. File 6247 should be here. He pulled it yesterday afternoon, triple-checked the contents, prepared it for this morning's executive review. It's gone. He stands too fast, his crutch nearly slipping on the polished floor. Pain shoots up his bad leg, but he ignores it, scanning the nearby desks, trying to figure out where the file could have disappeared to. That's when he sees it, on Sable's desk, partially hidden under her keyboard. The green label is unmistakable. File 6247, the merger documents he spent 3 hours organizing, just sitting there like she has every right to it. Reese moves toward her desk, each step measured, trying to keep his voice steady even though his heart is hammering. That's my file. Sable looks up with manufactured confusion. Her makeup is perfect as always, her hair smooth, her expression a masterclass in fake innocence. What file? The one under your keyboard, 6247, I need it back. Oh, this, Sable pulls it out, flips through pages like she's just noticing it for the first time. I found it by the printer. You really should be more careful, Reese. Losing important documents could get you fired. The implication hangs in the air. She took it. She's the one who removed it from his desk. And now she's framing him for negligence. I didn't lose it, Reese says quietly. You took it. Sable's smile sharpens. That's a serious accusation. Do you have proof? She knows he doesn't. Knows the office cameras are positioned to cover entrances and exits, not individual desks. Knows that in a building like Crownstone, accusation without evidence is career suicide. Around them, work has stopped. Other employees watch the confrontation with the kind of interest usually reserved for accidents, for violence, for entertainment that comes at someone else's expense. Sable stands, holding the file just out of reach. She's taller than Reese even when he's not leaning on a crutch, and she uses the height difference deliberately, forcing him to look up at her. You know what I think? She steps closer, voice dropping to something almost intimate. I think you're stressed. I think pregnancy brain is making you confused. I think maybe you should take some time off, for your health. The words sound concerned, caring even, but her eyes are cold, calculating, enjoying this. I just need the file back, Reese says. Of course, Sable hands it over with exaggerated care. Try not to lose it again. Reese takes the file. Clutching it against his chest with his free hand, he turns to go back to his desk, trying to salvage what's left of his dignity. That's when his crutch catches on something. He looks down, a black cable stretches across the aisle between desks. It wasn't there a minute ago, he's certain. He walked this exact path without incident. But now it's there, positioned perfectly to trip someone who isn't watching their footing. Reese tries to step over it, but his bad leg won't cooperate. His balance shifts wrong. The crutch slides on the polished floor, and for the second time in 2 days, gravity wins. He goes down hard on his knees, managing to twist at the last second so he doesn't land on his belly. The file explodes across the floor, papers scattering. His crutch clatters away. Pain radiates from both kneecaps and his bad hip screams in protest. Nobody rushes to help. Instead, phones come out. Cameras point at him. Someone whispers about posting it to the company's social feed. Reese stays on the floor, breathing through the pain, trying to gather the scattered papers with shaking hands. Each document he retrieves feels like a small defeat. Each second that passes without assistance confirms what he already knows. He's not a person here, he's a story, entertainment, a cautionary tale about what happens to omegas who don't know their place. A hand appears in his peripheral vision, offering help. Reese looks up to find Marcus Chen from accounting crouching beside him. Marcus is quiet, keeps to himself, never participates in the office cruelty. For a second, Reese thinks maybe there's one decent person left in this building. Then Marcus leans close and whispers, "She's recording you crying in the bathroom, you know. Posted it this morning to a private group chat. 300 people have seen it." The words hit like a physical blow. Reese's hands freeze on the papers. His vision tunnels, because he did cry in the bathroom yesterday. Did break down where he thought no one could see, where he thought he was safe. But cameras are everywhere now. Phones fit in pockets. Privacy is a myth sold to people stupid enough to believe in safety. "Why are you telling me this?" Reese asks, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus shrugs, handing him another document. "Because she's not going to stop, and you should know what you're dealing with." Then he stands and walks away, leaving Reese alone on the floor with his scattered papers, and the knowledge that his humiliation has been monetized, packaged, distributed to hundreds of people who will never see him as human. His phone buzzes again, same unknown number. "Executive elevator, 5 minutes, come alone." Reese's breath catches. The executive elevator is reserved for C-suite only. He's never been inside it, never been summoned to it, never had any reason to exist in that space. But someone wants him there now. Someone who knows about the missing file, about the harassment, about the recordings. Someone who's been watching close enough to know exactly when Reese needs an exit. He gathers the last of the papers, retrieves his crutch and pulls himself upright. His knees throb, his leg screams, but he moves toward the executive wing anyway, following an instruction from someone who might be his last chance at survival. Or his final mistake. The elevator doors gleam ahead, polished metal reflecting his disheveled appearance back at him. No one from the main floor is watching. They've already gotten their entertainment for the morning. Reese reaches for the call button with trembling fingers. The doors slide open with a whisper. And he steps inside alone. Who's waiting for Reese, and what do they want? The executive elevator is empty. Reese leans against the brass railing, trying to steady his breathing, trying to convince his heart to stop trying to escape through his ribs. The doors slide shut with a soft click, and the elevator starts moving up without him pressing any buttons. Someone programmed it, someone is controlling where he goes. The pendant under his shirt feels heavier with each floor that passes. Reese presses one hand to his belly, feeling the baby shift restlessly, like the pup can sense his fear, like the tiny life inside him knows they're moving towards something dangerous. The elevator stops on the 47th floor, executive territory, where the real power lives. But the doors don't open to an office. They open to a private lobby that looks more like a penthouse than a workplace. Dark wood panels, modern art on the walls, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the city spread out below like a map of conquest. And standing in front of those windows, backlit by morning sun, is Sable Harrington. She's not alone. 3 other women flank her. Reese recognizes them from the main floor, Lakendra from marketing, Imani from legal, Destiny from client services. All of them alpha or beta, all of them part of Sable's inner circle, all of them looking at Reese like he's something they found stuck to their expensive shoes. I was wondering if you'd actually come, Sable says, turning away from the windows. Her smile is sharp enough to draw blood. Stupid but brave, I respect that. Reese's grip tightens on his crutch. The message said to come alone. I lied. Sable moves closer, her heels clicking on marble floors. Shocking, I know, but I wanted witnesses for this conversation. What conversation? Lakendra laughs, the sound harsh and cutting. He actually thinks someone wants to talk to him. Imani pulls out her phone, angles it toward Reese. This is going to be perfect content. Reese tries to back toward the elevator, but Destiny moves to block his path. She's bigger than him, stronger, and she knows it. Her arms cross over her chest as she leans against the elevator call button, making it clear that leaving isn't an option anymore. Here's how this works, Sable says, still approaching with measured steps. You're going to quit today, right now actually. You're going to write a nice resignation letter about how the job was too stressful, how you need to focus on your health, how Crownstone deserves better than what you can offer. I'm not quitting. Yes, Sable says, her voice dropping to something colder, you are. She stops directly in front of him, close enough that Reese can smell her perfume, expensive and suffocating, close enough that he has to tilt his head back to meet her eyes. You don't belong here, Sable continues. You never did, a crippled omega with a bastard baby. That's not the image Crownstone wants to project. You're an embarrassment, a liability, and I'm doing everyone a favor by making you leave. You can't force me to resign. Can't I? Sable pulls out her phone, swipes through screens, then turns it so Reese can see. This is you yesterday, crying in the bathroom. This is you on the floor today. This is you falling twice in 2 days. I have 17 different videos of you being pathetic. I can post them everywhere. Company feeds, social media, professional networks. I can make sure every person you've ever met sees exactly how weak you are. Reese's throat closes. His hands shake so badly he almost drops his crutch. But wait, Sable says, swiping to another screen, there's more. This is your medical file, high-risk pregnancy, spine injury, chronic pain, depression medications prescribed 3 years ago. Your whole sad story, right here in my hands. How did you? That's confidential. Money buys anything, sweetheart, including privacy. Sable's smile widens. So here's the deal. You resign today quietly and I keep all of this to myself. You refuse and I make you famous for all the wrong reasons. Your choice. The baby kicks inside Reese. Hard, like the pup is fighting back even though Reese doesn't know how. Why are you doing this? Reese asks, his voice breaking despite his best efforts. What did I ever do to you? For the first time, something real flickers across Sable's face. Not quite emotion, more like irritation at having to explain something obvious. You exist wrong, she says simply. You're weak pretending to be capable. You're damaged goods taking up space. And worst of all, you're pregnant without securing your future. You're everything omegas shouldn't be. A cautionary tale walking around reminding everyone that nature doesn't always protect its own. She leans in closer, voice dropping to a whisper meant only for Reese. You're the kind of omega who should never reproduce. A crippled omega raising a bastard. That's society rotting from the inside out, and I won't watch it happen in my workspace. The words land like physical blows, each one calculated, each one designed to cut exactly where Reese is already bleeding. His vision blurs, his chest tightens, because somewhere deep down, he's thought the same things about himself, wondered if he has any right to bring a child into a world that treats him like garbage. Questioned whether his pup deserves better than what he can provide. But hearing it said out loud, hearing his deepest fears weaponized by someone who doesn't even know him. Reese's hands ball into fists. "Delete the videos," he says quietly. Sable laughs, "Absolutely not." "Delete them or what?" Sable steps even closer, invading his space completely. "You'll fight me, you can barely stand, you'll report me, with what proof, you'll get a lawyer, with what money?" She reaches out and taps his belly with one perfectly manicured nail. "Face it, honey, you're powerless, always have been, always will be." Something inside Reese breaks. Not into pieces, into clarity. Because Sable is right about one thing, he is powerless, has been since the stairs, since his mother's choice, since the vault, since every moment of his life where someone stronger decided his fate. But powerlessness doesn't mean worthlessness. And this baby deserves better than watching their parent give up. Reese reaches for Sable's phone, lunging forward despite the pain screaming up his bad leg. His fingers brush the device before Sable jerks it away, laughing at the attempt. "Pathetic," she says, "you can't even." Reese doesn't let her finish, he swings his crutch. Not at her hand. The metal connects with her wrist and Sable yelps, dropping the phone. It hits the marble floor with a crack that sounds like victory. For exactly 2 seconds, everyone freezes. Then Sable's face transforms into pure rage. "You're going to regret that," she hisses. She shoves Reese, hard, both hands on his chest, all her strength behind it. Reese stumbles backward, his crutch slips, his bad leg buckles, and this time there's nothing to catch him. He falls directly onto his side. The impact drives the air from his lungs. Pain explodes through his hip, his ribs, his belly. For one horrifying moment, everything inside him seems to shift wrong, seems to scream that something is damaged, something is breaking. Then he feels it. Warmth spreading beneath him, soaking through his pants, wrong temperature, wrong texture. Blood! Reese gasps, trying to sit up, trying to move, but his body won't cooperate. The pain is too sharp, too all-consuming. His hands go to his belly automatically, protective, desperate. "Oh my God," someone says. Might be Amani, might be Lakendra. The voices blur together. "Is that? He's blading. Sable, we need to." But Sable just stands there, staring down at Reese with an expression that might be horror or might be satisfaction. It's impossible to tell. Reese tries to speak, but nothing comes out except a sound like breaking, like everything inside him is tearing apart, like the universe is ending in slow motion. His vision starts to tunnel, grey creeping in from the edges. The last thing he sees before the darkness takes him is the elevator doors opening again. And a figure stepping out. Tall, dark suit, moving fast. Someone familiar. Someone who looks like Fury, given human form. Can anyone save Reese and his baby, or is it already too late? The blood spreads across white marble, like a map of everything going wrong. Reese can't breathe, can't think, can't do anything except watch the dark red pool expand beneath him while his body screams that something vital is breaking, that the life inside him is slipping away with every second that passes. His hands press against his belly, shaking so violently he can barely feel the movement underneath. The baby, his pup, the one thing in his life that matters more than surviving. "Please," he whispers, the word barely audible, "please don't leave me." Someone screams, high-pitched, panicked. Might be Lakendra or Amani, but Reese can't focus enough to tell. The world has narrowed to just pain and blood, and the terrifying silence where the baby's kicks should be. Footsteps pound across marble, multiple sets, running. "Call an ambulance," a male voice, deep, authoritative. "Now." Reese tries to turn his head, tries to see who's speaking, but his body won't cooperate. His vision keeps blurring, grey creeping in from the edges like smoke. More voices, overlapping, frantic. He's losing too much blood. Where's the damn medical team? Somebody get towels. Move, all of you, move. That last voice cuts through the chaos like a blade, cold, Absolute, the kind of voice that doesn't expect disobedience because it's never experienced it. Reese knows that voice. Has heard it in nightmares and dreams. Has replayed it in his mind every day for 3 months, trying to decode what it meant, trying to understand what happened in the vault. Varic Hale drops to his knees beside Reese without regard for his expensive suit or the blood soaking into the fabric. His hands move to Reese's face first, tilting his head, checking his eyes, his pulse, his breathing. "Stay with me," Varic says, his voice still cold but edged with something Reese has never heard before. "Fear, do you hear me? Stay with me." Reese tries to respond, but his throat won't work. His body is shutting down, prioritizing the baby, trying to keep the pup alive even if it means sacrificing everything else. Varic's gaze drops to Reese's belly, to the blood, to the evidence of crisis that can't be ignored or explained away. And Reese sees it happen in real time. The moment Varic smells the pup. The way his entire body goes rigid, the way his pupils dilate, the way his breathing stops for 3 full seconds before starting again, harsher, faster. Recognition slams into the CEO like a physical blow. His hands move to Reese's belly, pressing gently, feeling for movement, for life, for proof of what his instincts are already screaming. "No," Varic breathes, not a denial, a refusal. "No, this can't." The baby kicks. Weak, barely there, but unmistakable. Varic's expression cracks completely. The cold mask he wears like armor just shatters, revealing something raw underneath, something devastated. "Mine," he whispers, so quiet that only Reese can hear. "You're carrying mine." Reese's vision tunnels further. The grey is winning, but he manages one word, forced past lips that don't want to work anymore. "Yours." Varic's jaw locks. His hands cradle Reese's belly with a gentleness that seems impossible from someone rumored to break people for profit. When he looks up, his eyes are blazing. "Who did this?" The question comes out deadly quiet. "WHO did this." Nobody answers. The office employees have backed away, pressed against walls, suddenly understanding that they're in the presence of something dangerous. Sable tries to speak, her voice shaking now, all the confidence from 5 minutes ago evaporating. "Sir, it was an accident, he fell." Varic's gaze lands on her like a targeting system. "You're lying." "I'm not." "You pushed him," not a question. A statement, like Varic already knows. Like he saw it or sensed it or simply decided it was true and reality better conform. Sable's face goes white. "I didn't mean." "You pushed a pregnant Omega." Varic stands slowly, carefully, like he's fighting to maintain control. "You pushed my Omega, carrying a my pup." The temperature in the room seems to drop 10 degrees. Everyone feels it. The shift from corporate authority to something far more primal, far more dangerous. Varic turns to Destiny, who's still blocking the elevator. "Move." She scrambles out of the way so fast she nearly trips. Then Varic bends down and lifts Reese like he weighs nothing. One arm under his shoulders, one under his knees, cradling him against his chest with the kind of care usually reserved for breakable things. Reese's head lolls against Varic's shoulder. He can smell the alpha scent now, strong and overwhelming, his Omega instincts responding even through the pain and fear. "Safe," the scent says safe. But nothing feels safe, everything feels like ending. "My private medical team is 3 minutes out," Varic says to someone, might be speaking into a phone, might be addressing the air. "Get them to the penthouse immediately. Full obstetric emergency team. If anyone delays for any reason, fire them." Reese tries to stay conscious, tries to keep his eyes open, but his body is giving up, surrendering to shock and blood loss and exhaustion. The last thing he hears before the darkness takes him completely is Varic's voice, low and furious and promising destruction. "If he loses this baby, every person in this building will regret it." Then nothing. Just black. Just silence. Just the terrifying absence of everything. Hours pass like minutes, or maybe minutes pass like hours. Time loses meaning when consciousness keeps slipping away. Reese surfaces occasionally, catching fragments of reality before sinking back under. Voices arguing medical terms he doesn't understand. Hands examining him with clinical efficiency. Machines beeping steady rhythms that might be his heartbeat, or might be the baby's. Pain constant, all-consuming. And through it all, a presence at his side, steady, unmoving. A hand holding his like letting go would mean losing everything. When Reese finally claws his way back to full consciousness, the first thing he sees is unfamiliar ceiling. White, expensive looking, not a hospital. The second thing he sees is Varic Hale. The CEO sits in a chair pulled close to the bed, still wearing his blood-stained suit, looking like he hasn't moved in hours. His hair is disheveled, his tie is gone, his eyes are hollow, shadowed by something that looks like fear weathered into exhaustion. He's holding Reese's hand. Reese stares at their joined hands, trying to make sense of it, trying to reconcile the cold CEO everyone fears with the man who looks like he's been keeping vigil at a deathbed. The baby, Reese's voice comes out wrecked, barely above a whisper. Varic's grip tightens, alive, stable, high risk but surviving. The relief hits so hard Reese nearly passes out again. His free hand moves to his belly, feeling for movement, finding it. The pup kicks weakly but definitely, still there, still fighting. The blading, Reese asks. Stopped, they gave you emergency medication. Stitches, you're on bed rest for the remainder of the pregnancy. Varic pauses, his jaw working like he's trying to find words that don't exist. You almost died, both of you. Reese closes his eyes. Tears leak from the corners without permission, because he knows, felt it happening, felt his body trying to choose between two lives and failing at both. When he opens his eyes again, Varic is staring at him with an intensity that makes it hard to breathe. Why didn't you tell me? The CEO's voice is rough, raw. 3 months, Reese. 3 months you've been carrying my child and working in that building, surrounded by people who treated you like. He stops, can't finish. His free hand curls into a fist, so tight his knuckles go white. You left, Reese says simply. The morning after, no note, no explanation, just medicine and silence. What was I supposed to think? Varic flinches like the words are physical. I thought distance would protect you. From what? From me, from my world, from the kind of enemies who would use you against me if they knew you existed. Varic's gaze drops to their joined hands. I have power, Reese, real power, the kind that comes with real consequences. People disappear for crossing me. Businesses collapse, families get destroyed. That's what I am, that's what I do. Then why are you here now? Because I was wrong. The admission seems to cost him something. I thought staying away meant safety. Instead, it meant you faced everything alone, got harmed in my own building. Almost lost our pup because I was too much of a coward to claim what was mine. The word hangs between them. Mine. Reese should be angry, should demand explanations, should tell Varic that 3 months of silence can't be erased by one night of playing hero. But the baby kicks again, stronger this time, and Reese is too tired to pretend he doesn't need help, too exhausted to keep fighting alone. What happens now, he asks. Varic meets his eyes. And for the first time since the vault, Reese sees past the cold exterior to something genuine underneath. Now I fix everything I broke. Will Varic's protection be enough, or has the damage already gone too far? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Varic doesn't let go of Reese's hand for 6 hours. The medical team comes and goes, checking vitals, adjusting monitors, whispering consultations that Varic listens to with an expression carved from ice. Every update gets noted, every risk factor memorized, every instruction followed to the letter. Reese drifts in and out, exhausted beyond anything he's ever felt. But every time he surfaces, Varic is there, solid, present, like he's making up for 3 months of absence by refusing to leave now. It's nearly midnight when Reese wakes fully. The room is dimly lit, one small lamp casting shadows across expensive furniture. This isn't a hospital, it's the penthouse, the same one from 3 months ago. Reese recognizes the windows, the view, the exact shade of grey on the walls. You brought me back here, he says. Varic stirs from whatever thoughts had consumed him. My medical team is better than any hospital, and more discreet. Discreet? People talk, Reese, especially about pregnant omegas showing up in emergency rooms covered in blood. I won't have you become gossip. Varic's voice stays level, but something underneath it trembles. Not again. Reese tries to sit up. Pain shoots through his abdomen immediately, and Varic moves faster than should be possible, one hand supporting Reese's back, the other reaching for pillows to prop him upright. Slowly, Varic says. The doctor said no sudden movements for at least 48 hours. I can't stay here for 2 days. You'll stay as long as necessary. It's not a suggestion, not even really a statement, just fact delivered with the kind of certainty that built empires. Reese should argue, should insist on going home to his studio apartment with the broken elevator and the landlord who doesn't fix anything, should maintain some shred of independence. But the baby kicks, and Reese remembers the blood spreading across marble, and independence feels less important than survival. Sable, Reese says quietly, what happened to her? Varic's expression goes cold, not angry cold, something worse, something calculated. She's being handled. What does that mean? It means she no longer works for Crownstone Holdings. It means her professional reputation is being systematically destroyed. It means every connection she has in this city is receiving documentation of her behavior. Varic stands, moves to the window, looks out at the city lights below. It means she's learning what happens when you harm what's mine. The possessiveness should bother Reese, should feel like another cage, but after months of being treated like garbage, being claimed feels less like imprisonment and more like acknowledgement. Like finally mattering to someone. The others, Reese asks, Lakendra, Imani, Destiny, they were there, they helped. They're gone too, all of them, terminated with cause, no references, no severance. Varic's voice stays flat, emotionless, but his hands curl into fists at his sides, and that's just the beginning. What else are you going to do? Varic turns from the window. The lamplight catches his face at an angle that makes him look dangerous, not threatening, just capable of things most people wouldn't consider. Sable wasn't working alone, he says. She had help. Access to your medical records requires certain clearances. Money changed hands. Someone in my organization betrayed confidentiality protocols. Reese's breath catches. You mean? I mean this was planned, coordinated. Someone wanted you gone badly enough to bribe multiple people, orchestrate harassment, and arrange opportunities for injury. Varic crosses the room, sits on the edge of the bed close enough that Reese can smell his alpha scent again, and I'm going to find out who. Why would anyone care that much about me? Varic's jaw tightens. Because you're carrying my child, because my enemies are always looking for leverage, because in my world weakness gets exploited and anyone connected to me becomes a target. He pauses, something almost like pain crossing his features. That's why I stayed away. That's why I thought distance meant protection. You keep saying that, but I don't understand. Reese shifts on the pillows, trying to find a position that doesn't hurt. If being connected to you is so dangerous, why claim me now? Why make it public? Because hiding didn't work. Varic's voice drops lower. They found you anyway, hurt you anyway, nearly killed our pup anyway, so now we do this differently. Differently how? Varic reaches out slowly, giving Reese time to pull away. When he doesn't, Varic's hand settles on his belly, gentle, reverent, nothing like the controlled violence everyone whispers about. Now I make it clear that you're under my protection, that anyone who touches you answers to me, that harm done to you is harm done to me, and I don't forgive that kind of insult. His thumb moves in a small circle over the fabric of Reese's shirt. Now I do what I should have done 3 months ago. Which is? Varic meets his eyes, and Reese sees it clearly now. The exhaustion, the fear, the guilt carved into someone who probably hasn't felt guilty about anything in years. Protect you, both of you, no matter what it costs. The baby kicks under Varic's palm, strong, definite, like the pup recognizes their father's touch. Varic's breath catches, his eyes go wide, for a second. The cold CEO disappears completely and something younger, more vulnerable takes his place. That's, his voice cracks, that's the first time I've felt. He doesn't finish, can't, because he's shaking now, his hands still pressed to Reese's belly, his eyes fixed on the spot where their child moves beneath skin and muscle, an impossible hope. Reese watches him break. Watches the most powerful man in the city come apart over something as simple as a baby kick. And despite everything, despite the abandonment and the fear and the 3 months of suffering alone, something in Reese's chest loosens. Because Varic is crying. Silently, just tears tracking down his face, while he keeps his hand on Reese's belly like he's afraid moving, will make this moment disappear. I'm sorry, Varic whispers. I'm so sorry I wasn't there, that I let this happen, that I failed you both. Reese doesn't know what to say, doesn't know if forgiveness is something he can offer yet, but he covers Varic's hand with his own, lets them feel the baby move together, and maybe that's enough for now. They stay like that for a long time. No words, just breath and heartbeats and the small miracle of life continuing despite everything trying to stop it. Finally, Varic speaks again. I need to tell you something about who I really am, what I really do. I know you run Crownstone. That's the public story, the acceptable version. Varic's thumb keeps moving in gentle circles, but underneath that I run something else, something most people don't know exists. A network, operations that governments pretend they don't see, the kind of power that can't be explained on tax forms. Reese goes still. You're telling me you're criminal by some definitions. Varic's voice stays steady. By others, I'm a businessman operating in grey areas, but the truth is simpler. I'm someone who controls things, money, information, people when necessary, and I'm very good at it. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand what protection means in my world, because our child will grow up in this reality, whether we want it or not. Varic finally looks up from Reese's belly to meet his eyes, because I won't lie to you anymore, not about this. Reese should be terrified, should demand to leave, should want nothing to do with someone who just admitted to being exactly what the rumors claim. But the baby kicks again, and Reese thinks about the blood on marble, about Sable's cruelty, about 3 months of suffering because he had no protection at all. What does protection look like? He asks quietly. Varic's expression hardens into something determined. It looks like you never working at Crownstone again, never putting yourself at risk for a paycheck. It looks like private medical care, security, everything you and our pup need. He pauses. It looks like you letting me take care of you the way I should have from the beginning. I'm not a possession. No, you're the omega carrying my child. That makes you more important than any possession could ever be. Varic's hand tightens slightly on Reese's belly. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm not even asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to let me fix what I broke, to let me be what our pup needs me to be. Reese closes his eyes. Exhaustion pulls at him again, dragging him towards sleep. But before he surrenders to it, he whispers the question that matters most. What if your enemies come for us anyway? Varic's response comes swift and certain, and absolutely lethal. Then they learn why people fear my name. Can Varic really protect them, or will his past catch up to destroy everything? Subscribe and hit that notification bell to see what happens next, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Morning light filters through floor-to-ceiling windows when Reese wakes again. His body aches less than yesterday. The sharp pain has dulled to something manageable. He can breathe without feeling like his ribs are trying to escape. Progress. Varic is still there. Still in the chair, still in yesterday's clothes. His eyes are closed, but his hand remains wrapped around Reese's, fingers interlaced like breaking the connection might break something more important. Reese studies him in the quiet dawn light. Without the cold mask, Varic looks younger, tired, human in ways that seem at odds with everything Reese knows about him. You're staring, Varic says without opening his eyes. You're still here. Where else would I be? Running your empire, destroying your enemies, being terrifying. Varic's lips twitch, almost a smile. I can be terrifying from this chair. He opens his eyes then, and the exhaustion Reese saw yesterday has deepened. Dark circles shadow his features. His hair remains disheveled. He looks like he hasn't slept in days. When was the last time you rested? Reese asks. Not important. It is if you collapse. I won't collapse. Varic sits up straighter, rolling his shoulders. I've gone longer without sleep on less important missions. Missions? The word hangs there, a reminder of what Varic admitted last night. The criminal operations, the grey areas, the power built on things most people don't acknowledge in daylight. Varic must see something in Reese's expression because his jaw tightens, having second thoughts about my protection. I'm having first thoughts, Reese says carefully. You walked away 3 months ago without explanation. Now you're back, claiming me, threatening people, admitting you run some kind of underground operation. That's a lot to process. You want me to leave? I want to understand. Reese shifts on the pillows, his free hand moving to his belly. You said you stayed away to protect me, but from who? From what specifically? Varic is quiet for a long moment. When he speaks, his voice carries weight that wasn't there before. History, consequences. I have rivals, other people who want what I have. They've tried various approaches over the years, hostile takeovers, political pressure, legal challenges. None of it worked. He stands, moves to the window, but doesn't let go of Reese's hand. The stretch between them becomes a tether. So they started looking for personal leverage. Family, friends, anyone I cared about. And you thought if they knew about me, they'd use you, use our pup, make you targets to get to me. Varic's reflection in the glass looks haunted. I've seen it happen. Watch people I knew lose everything because they loved someone who became a liability. I thought staying away meant you'd be invisible, anonymous, safe. Instead, I ended up in danger anyway. Yes, the word comes out harsh, because I didn't account for random cruelty. Didn't consider that you wouldn't need to be connected to me to get hurt, that just existing as an omega in a corporate environment made you vulnerable. Reese thinks about Sable, about the orchestrated harassment, about the videos and the stolen files and the coffee spill. You said someone paid Sable, that it was coordinated. My security team traced the money yesterday while you slept. Offshore account, routed through 3 shell companies, very professional. Varic turns from the window. It leads back to Marcus Chen. The name takes a second to register. Then Reese remembers, accounting, the man who helped him gather papers, who warned him about the recordings. Marcus helped me, Reese says slowly. Why would he? Because he was paid to get close, to gather information, to help create situations where you'd be vulnerable. Varic's voice goes cold. He wasn't helping, he was baiting traps. Reese's stomach turns, but who paid him? Who would go through that much trouble? The Rousseau family, old money, European connections. They've been trying to break into my territory for 2 years. Varic returns to the bedside, sits. They learned about the vault, about us, about the pregnancy, and they saw an opportunity. To do what? Make me weak, distracted, force me to choose between business and personal concerns. Varic's jaw clenches. If you'd lost the baby, I would have been compromised, emotionally vulnerable, easy to manipulate or exploit. They were counting on it. The calculation makes Reese feel sick. His hand moves protectively to his belly. They wanted our pup dead. They wanted leverage. The baby dying would have destroyed my focus. The baby surviving but threatened would have given them control. Varic's eyes burn with something dark. Either way they win, or they thought they would. What are you going to do? What I do best. Varic's smile contains no warmth. Remove threats, permanently. Reese shivers despite the room's temperature, because he believes it. Can see it in Varic's expression that this isn't empty threat or angry posturing. This is someone statting operational plans, the way normal people discuss grocery shopping. You're going to kill them. I'm going to make them regret targeting what's mine. Varic's hand moves to cover Reese's on his belly. There's a difference. Death is quick, easy. What I have planned is neither. And that's supposed to make me feel better. It's supposed to keep you and our pup alive. Varic leans forward, his voice dropping. I don't expect you to understand my world, Reese. I don't expect you to approve of my methods, but I need you to trust that I know how to handle threats, that I'm very good at making sure the people I protect stay protected. By becoming a monster. If that's what it takes. No hesitation, no apology, just flat certainty. I've done worse for less important reasons. Our child is worth any price. The words should terrify Reese, should make him demand distance, safety, anything but this casual discussion of violence and revenge. But he thinks about Sable's smile, about the blood on marble, about 3 months of suffering alone while predators circled. And maybe monsters have their uses. What happens after? Reese asks quietly. After you handle the threats, after the baby is born, what then? Varic's expression softens slightly. Then we figure it out together, however you want it to look. I don't want to be a possession. You're not, you're the mother of my child. That's different, more important. Varic's thumb traces circles on Reese's belly. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm not even sure I'm capable of being loved, but I can protect you, provide for you, give our pup every advantage my power can buy. That's not a family, that's a transaction. Maybe, Varic meets his eyes, or maybe it's the foundation. Maybe protection and provision turn into something else eventually. I don't know, I've never tried this before. Reese studies him, searches for deception and finds only exhausted honesty. This man who runs an empire through fear and control, reduced to admitting he doesn't know how to be a father. I need time, Reese says finally, to process this, to figure out what I want. You'll have it all the time you need. Varic stands, but you'll have it here, under guard, safe, non-negotiable. You're confining me. I'm protecting you, there's a difference. Varic moves toward the door. Rest, heal. The medical team will check on you every 2 hours. If you need anything at all, there's a call button by the bed. Someone will respond immediately. He's leaving, actually walking away. And despite everything, despite the confusion and fear and uncertainty, Reese feels panic spike. Wait, he calls out. Varic stops at the door, turns. You said you should have protected me from the start. Reese's voice comes out smaller than he wants. What did you mean? Varic is quiet for a long moment. When he speaks, something in his voice cracks. I mean, I knew the second I smelled you in that vault that you were important, that you mattered in ways I couldn't explain, that walking away was going to be the hardest thing I'd ever done. He grips the door frame, and I did it anyway, because I'm a coward who convinced himself that abandonment was protection, that leaving you alone was kindness. Was it? No, simple, devastating. It was the worst mistake I've ever made, and I've made a lot of mistakes. Then he's gone, the door closing softly behind him, leaving Reese alone with a baby that kicks restlessly and questions that don't have easy answers. Will Reese forgive Varic's abandonment, or is the damage too deep to heal? Subscribe and stay tuned to find out, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. 2 days pass before Reese sees Varic again. The medical team comes and goes like clockwork. They check vitals, change medications, monitor the baby with equipment that looks expensive and complicated. Everyone is professional, efficient, kind even. But Varic stays away. Reese tells himself he doesn't care, tells himself he needs the space anyway, but every time the door opens, something in his chest jumps, expecting to see the CEO and finding only doctors and nurses instead. On the third morning, Reese is strong enough to walk, slowly, with support, but walking nonetheless. A woman named Dr. Chen, no relation to the Marcus who betrayed him, helps him to the bathroom and back. She's gentle but firm, explaining that movement is important, that bed rest doesn't mean immobility. You're healing well, she says, settling Reese back into bed. The bleeding has stopped completely, your vitals are stable, the baby's heartbeat is strong. When can I leave? Dr. Chen's expression shifts to something carefully neutral. That's not my decision. Whose decision is it? Mr. Hale's. He's been very specific about your care. Of course he has, because control is what Varic does, what he's good at, what probably makes him successful in his legitimate business and his less than legitimate operations. After Dr. Chen leaves, Reese forces himself to stand again. His legs shake but hold. He makes it to the window, looks out at the city spread below like a game board. Somewhere out there, Varic is handling threats, making people regret their choices, being the monster he admitted to being. And Reese is trapped in a golden cage, protected but confined, safe but not free. The door opens behind him. You shouldn't be out of bed. Reese turns to find Varic in the doorway. He looks different, cleaned up, fresh suit, hair perfect again. The cold mask is back in place, transforming him into the CEO everyone fears instead of the exhausted father who cried over a baby kick. I'm fine, Reese says. You almost died 3 days ago. But I didn't, thanks to your protection. Reese hears the edge in his own voice, which I'm very grateful for obviously, since I'm still stuck in your penthouse like some kind of prisoner. Varic finishes. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Varic steps into the room, closes the door. The space between them feels charged with things unsaid. It's me keeping you alive while I handle the people who tried to kill our child. His voice stays level, but something darker moves underneath, which I've done, by the way, in case you were wondering. Reese goes still. What do you mean, handled? I mean the Rousseau family no longer considers you a target. I mean Marcus Chen no longer has employment anywhere in this city. I mean Sable Harrington is currently explaining her actions to federal investigators who suddenly became very interested in fraud and harassment charges. Varic's smile contains sharp edges. I mean the threat has been neutralized. How? Do you really want details? Reese thinks about it, about what neutralized might mean in Varic's world, about the violence implied in that cold smile. No, he admits finally, I don't. Smart, Varic moves to the window, stands beside Reese but doesn't touch him. The Rousseaus tried to buy leverage. I showed them what happens when you mistake my mercy for weakness. They've withdrawn their operations from the city. They won't be back. And if they come back anyway? They won't, absolute certainty. I made sure of it. The implications make Reese's stomach turn, but he can't deny the relief underneath the revulsion, because the baby kicks, strong and healthy, and that wouldn't be happening if Varic hadn't acted. What about Sable? Reese asks. Varic's expression hardens. Sable is a different problem. She wasn't working for the Rousseaus. She acted on her own out of cruelty and prejudice. That makes her less strategic and more personal. So what happens to her? She's been charged with assault of a pregnant person, battery, harassment. The security footage from the executive floor was submitted to authorities. Varic turns to look at Reese. She's also been sued civilly for medical damages, emotional distress, and attempted harm to a minor. By the time legal proceedings finish, she'll have nothing left. You destroyed her. Yes, no apology. She tried to kill our child. She gets destroyed. That's how this works. Reese should feel satisfaction, should revel in Sable's downfall, but mostly he just feels tired. What about the others? Lakendra, Imani, Destiny. Fired, references destroyed. Finding new employment will be difficult. Varic's voice stays flat. They were complicit. They recorded you, mocked you, participated in your harassment. Actions have consequences. You sound like you're reading a mission report. This was a mission. Varic finally looks at him. The mission was protect what's mine. I completed it, efficiently. I'm not a mission objective. No, you're something more important. Varic reaches out slowly, gives Reese time to move away. When he doesn't, Varic's hand settles on his belly. You're the omega carrying my pup. That makes you more valuable than anything else in my world. The baby kicks against Varic's palm, strong, definite. Like the pup recognizes their father. Varic's breath catches. The security footage plays on a tablet screen, crystal clear despite being recorded 3 days ago. Sable pushing Reese, Reese falling, blood spreading across marble like evidence that can't be denied or explained away. Varic slides the tablet across his desk toward 2 men in expensive suits. Lawyers, the kind who charge by the minute and win cases that shouldn't be winnable. This is assault of a pregnant person, the older lawyer says, his voice clinical. Battery, reckless endangerment of a minor. We can add civil charges, emotional distress, medical damages, attempted harm. Add everything, Varic says. I want her buried so deep she never surfaces. The younger lawyer nods, making notes. The harassment documentation you provided strengthens the case. Video recordings, medical records accessed illegally, coordinated workplace abuse. We're looking at multiple charges across different jurisdictions. How long until she's in custody? Federal agents are picking her up this afternoon. Local police will assist. She won't make bail, not with what you've provided to prosecutors. Varic leans back in his chair, fingers steepled. And the others, Lakendra Harris, Imani Foster, Destiny Williams. Terminated with cause, references destroyed. Their professional networks have been notified of misconduct. Finding new employment will be nearly impossible. The older lawyer closes his briefcase with a satisfying click. They participated in harassment, recorded private moments without consent, and contributed to a hostile work environment. They're finished. Good, Varic stands, dismissing them with a gesture. Keep me updated on prosecution progress. I want to know every charge filed, every court date scheduled, every plea offer rejected. After the lawyers leave, Varic turns to the window overlooking his city. 3 days since Reese nearly died on his executive floor. 3 days of surgical precision as he dismantled everyone involved. But Sable was just the visible threat. The real problem ran deeper. His phone buzzes. Security Chief Marcus Rodriguez, no relation to the traitor, appears on screen looking grim. We traced the money, Rodriguez says without preamble. Marcus Chen was paid through an offshore account registered to a shell company owned by the Rousseau family. European operation. They've been trying to break into your territory for 2 years. Varic's jaw tightens. How much did they pay him? 50,000 to get close to Reese. Another 25 when he provided information about the pregnancy. 50 more when he helped create opportunities for Sable to act. Rodriguez scrolls through documents. They wanted leverage, information, anything they could use to distract or compromise you. Where's Marcus Chen now? Disappeared, probably realized he was exposed, and ran. Find him, Varic's voice drops to something dangerous. I don't care where he goes. Find him and make him understand what happens when people betray me. Already on it, we have people tracking his movements. He won't stay hidden long. After ending the call, Varic moves to his private elevator. The same one where Reese fell, where blood-stained marble that's been replaced but still haunts every time Varic walks past. The penthouse is quiet when he enters. Dr. Chen stands outside Reese's room, updating charts. How is he? Varic asks. Healing well, vitals stable. The baby's heartbeat is strong. He was walking earlier, short distances with support but walking. She pauses. He asked when he could leave. What did you tell him? That it wasn't my decision. Varic nods because it's not. Won't be until every threat is neutralized, every enemy accounted for, every possibility of harm eliminated completely. He enters the bedroom to find Reese standing at the window, looking out at the city, still in hospital-style clothes but upright, moving, stronger than 3 days ago. "You shouldn't be out of bed," Varic says. Reese turns and something flashes across his face. Relief maybe, or frustration, hard to tell. Their conversation unfolds, Reese asking about freedom, Varic explaining consequences, the space between protection and imprisonment narrowing until it's hard to tell which is which. When Varic mentions handling the Roussos, he watches Reese's reaction carefully. "They tried to use you against me," Varic explains. "Paid people to get close, to create situations where you'd be vulnerable. They thought making you lose the baby would compromise me emotionally, make me weak, easy to manipulate." "So you stopped them?" "I educated them." Varic's smile contains no warmth. The Rousso family invested heavily in properties throughout the city: warehouses, apartment buildings, commercial real estate. As of yesterday, every property failed inspection. Code violations, safety hazards, environmental concerns. They're facing millions in fines and forced closures. "You manufactured violations." "I revealed violations that already existed but were being ignored through creative accounting and strategic bribes." Varic moves closer. Their political connections suddenly became liabilities. Their business partners developed concerns. Their investors started pulling funding. By week's end, they'll have lost 60% of their net worth. And Marcus Chen. Unemployable, every background check reveals fraud charges pending. Every reference confirms misconduct. His bank accounts are frozen pending investigation into money laundering. Varic's expression hardens. "He helped nearly kill our child. He gets what he deserves." Reese is quiet, processing. When he speaks, his voice is small. "You destroyed them without killing anyone." Death is too quick, too merciful. Varic reaches out, his hands settling on Reese's belly. "I wanted them to suffer, to understand completely what they took from me, what they almost destroyed." The baby kicks against his palm, and everything inside Varic shifts. The cold calculation that makes him effective becomes something softer, something terrified and hopeful, and completely unfamiliar. "Our pup is strong," Reese says quietly, "stronger than either of us expected." Like their mother, Varic's thumb traces gentle circles. "You survived everything they threw at you: harassment, violence, blood loss. You protected our child through all of it." "I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice. You chose to keep fighting. That takes strength most people don't have." Varic meets Reese's eyes. "I should have recognized it sooner. Should have been there to support you instead of abandoning you to face everything alone." The admission hangs between them. Not quite apology, not quite explanation, just truth laid bare. "What happens now?" Reese asks. "Now we make sure you and the pup stay safe until delivery. Then we figure out what family looks like." Varic's voice softens slightly. "However you want it to look." "I don't know what I want." "Then we have time to figure it out." Varic steps back, creating space. "But you'll do it here, protected, safe, non-negotiable until the baby is born." He leaves before Reese can argue, before the moment turns into something neither of them is ready for. Because protection he knows how to do, control he understands, but vulnerability, admitting he needs Reese as much as Reese needs him, that's territory Varic hasn't mapped yet. In his private office, Varic pulls up security feeds showing Sable being arrested. She's screaming about injustice, about false accusations, about powerful men destroying innocent women. No one believes her. The evidence is too solid, the witnesses too numerous, the video too clear. She'll spend years in prison, lose everything she built, become a cautionary tale about what happens when cruelty meets consequences. And Varic feels nothing watching it unfold. No satisfaction, no joy, just cold certainty that justice, his version of it, has been served. His phone buzzes with a message from Rodriguez. "Found Marcus Chen, Bangkok, awaiting instructions." Varic types back, "Make him disappear, not permanently, just long enough to forget he ever knew my name." Then he deletes the conversation and returns to monitoring Reese's room on security feeds. Watching the Omega who carries his child rest heal, survive despite everything trying to stop him. Protection isn't just keeping threats away, it's making sure threats know they'll lose before they even try. And anyone who crosses Varic Hale learns that lesson exactly once. Will Varic's methods be enough to keep them safe, or will new threats emerge? Subscribe and turn on notifications to find out, and share your predictions in the comments below. Chapter 10. 4 months later, snow falls outside the penthouse windows on a December morning that feels like new beginnings. Reese stands at the glass, one hand on his enormous belly, watching the city wake up below. He's huge now, the pregnancy in its final weeks, the baby so active that sleep has become something he achieves in brief increments between kicks and movements. Behind him, Varic enters carrying coffee and tea, decaf for Reese, full strength for himself because running an empire while preparing for fatherhood apparently requires maximum caffeine. "You're supposed to be resting," Varic says, though his voice carries fondness instead of command now. "The pup won't let me rest, they're training to be a kickboxer." Reese accepts the tea, breathing in the warm steam. "I think they inherited your intensity. Or your strength." Varic's hand joins Reese's on the belly, feeling the movement underneath, which is terrifying, honestly. They've settled into something over the past months. Not quite love, neither of them is ready to name it that, but partnership maybe, understanding, two people learning to build something from broken pieces and impossible circumstances. Reese still maintains his own space within the penthouse, still insists on independence even while accepting protection, still pushes back when Varic gets too controlling, which happens more often than either likes to admit. But they're trying, both of them, in their own damaged ways. The baby kicks hard and Reese winces. Varic notices immediately, concern flashing across features that have softened considerably over 4 months of proximity. "Contraction?" he asks. "Just movement, the real ones feel different." Dr. Chen explained the difference. Reese sips his tea, though she said they could start any day now. The medical team is on standby, fully equipped, ready to move within minutes. Varic's voice carries that familiar edge of control, of needing everything planned and accounted for. "You won't deliver in a hospital. Too public, too many variables. The penthouse has been converted into a full obstetric suite." "You're terrified," Reese observes quietly. "Of course I'm terrified. You nearly died 4 months ago. Childbirth is dangerous under perfect circumstances, and yours are far from perfect." Varic's jaw tightens. "I can control territories and destroy enemies, but I can't control this. Can't guarantee your safety with certainty. Can't eliminate the risk. So you're compensating with excessive preparation." "It's not excessive if it keeps you alive." Reese reaches up, touches Varic's face. The CEO still flinches slightly at gentle contact, unused to softness, but he doesn't pull away anymore. "I'm going to be fine," Reese says. "We're both going to be fine." "You can't know that." "No, but I can choose to believe it anyway." The philosophy seems foreign to Varic, who built his empire on certainty and control, but he nods, accepts it, lets Reese's optimism exist even if he can't share it. They stand together at the window, watching snow accumulate on buildings below. The city looks peaceful from up here, clean, like all the ugliness that exists at street level gets filtered out by distance and glass. Sable's trial starts next week, Varic mentions. Federal charges. The prosecutor says conviction is guaranteed given the evidence. "Will you attend?" "No, I'll send representatives, but I don't need to see her punished." Varic's hand moves in gentle circles on Reese's belly. "I just need to know she can never hurt you again." "What about the Roussos?" "Bankrupt, withdrawn completely from the city. They tried to establish operations in Dubai, but found their reputation preceded them." Varic's voice carries satisfaction. "Turns out destroying people's credibility is more effective than destroying their lives. They're not dead, just irrelevant." Reese shivers despite the warm room, because he understands now what Varic is capable of, the precision with which he dismantles enemies, the cold calculation that makes him dangerous. But he's also seen the other side, the way Varic cries when the baby kicks, the way he reads parenting books like their battle plans, the way he's learning, slowly, awkwardly, to be soft. A sharp pain hits Reese's lower back, different from before, stronger. He gasps, his hand tightening on Varic's arm. "What's wrong?" Varic's voice snaps to alertness immediately. "I think," another pain, stronger, "I think it's time." The next 6 hours blur together into controlled chaos. Dr. Chen and her team arrive within minutes, transforming the penthouse bedroom into a delivery room. Monitors beep, equipment hums, medical professionals move with practiced efficiency. Varic refuses to leave, holds Reese's hand through every contraction, breathes with him through every wave of pain, offers support that's clumsy but genuine. "You're doing amazing," Varic whispers during a brief rest between contractions. "So strong, so brave." I'm terrified, Reese admits. Me too, the confession costs Varic something, but we're terrified together, that counts for something. The labor intensifies, pain becomes all-consuming. Reese screams through contractions, cries between them, begs for it to be over even though he knows there's only one way out through. Dr. Chen's voice stays calm throughout, encouraging, professional, telling Reese when to push, when to breathe, when to rest. And finally, after 6 hours that feel like 60, a baby's cry fills the room. Loud, angry, absolutely perfect. Healthy boy, Dr. Chen announces, cleaning the infant with practiced hands. 8 pounds, 4 ounces, perfect APGAR scores. She places the baby on Reese's chest and everything else falls away. The pain, the exhaustion, the fear, all of it becomes background noise compared to the tiny life squirming against his skin. Reese's hands shake as he cradles his son, his pup, the baby he protected through harassment and violence and blood loss, the life that refused to give up no matter how hard the world tried to end it. "Hi," Reese whispers, tears streaming down his face. "Hi, little one, I'm your mama, and I'm so glad you're here." Beside him, Varic has gone completely still, frozen, staring at the baby like he's witnessing something impossible. Then he breaks. Actually breaks. The cold CEO who destroys enemies without hesitation, who builds empires through fear and control, who admits to being a monster, he shatters completely. Tears pour down his face, his shoulders shake, his breath comes in ragged gasps that sound like he's learning to cry for the first time. "That's our son," he whispers. "Ours." Reese shifts the baby carefully, letting Varic see their pup's face. Tiny features scrunched up, eyes closed, mouth working like he's already demanding things. "Do you want to hold him?" Reese asks. Varic looks terrified. "I don't know how." "Neither do I, we'll figure it out together." With Dr. Chen's guidance, Varic takes the baby, holds him against his chest with the kind of reverence usually reserved for precious artifacts. His large hands dwarf the infant, making their son look impossibly small and fragile. "He's perfect," Varic says, his voice wrecked. "Absolutely perfect." The baby opens his eyes, dark, unfocused, searching. And when Varic speaks again, the pup turns toward the sound of his father's voice. "Hello, son, I'm your father, and I promise you'll never know what it means to be unprotected, unwanted, alone." Varic's tears fall on the baby's blanket. "I promise I'll be better for you than anyone was for me." Reese watches them together, the cold alpha who learned to feel and the tiny life that made it necessary. And despite everything that brought them here, despite the pain and trauma and impossibility of their situation, something warm settles in his chest. This is family, broken and strange and built from ruins, but family nonetheless. 3 days later, Reese is recovered enough to walk. The baby, named Elijah after Reese's grandfather, sleeps in a bassinet beside the bed, healthy and growing stronger by the hour. Varic has barely left their sides, runs his empire from his phone while changing diapers and learning to swaddle, terrorizes his executives during conference calls while rocking a crying infant, manages to be both terrifying CEO and devoted father, though the combination seems to confuse everyone who witnesses it. On the 4th day, Reese makes his first trip outside the penthouse. Varic accompanies him, security flanking them discreetly. They go to a private park, closed to the public, secured in advance, where Reese can breathe fresh air and feel sunlight. "How does it feel?" Varic asks, watching Reese carefully for signs of exhaustion. "Strange, good, like I'm remembering what normal feels like." Reese adjusts Elijah in his arms. The baby sleeps peacefully, unaware that his existence changed everything. "4 months ago, I thought I'd die in your building, thought the cruelty would never end." "It did end, permanently." Varic's voice carries certainty. "Everyone who hurt you paid for it. Everyone who participated in your suffering understands consequences now. You destroyed them. I protected you, there's a difference." Varic touches Elijah's tiny hand, watches their son's fingers curl around his thumb, though I'll admit the protection was aggressive. Reese almost laughs, that's one word for it. They walk in silence for a while. Snow crunches under their feet. The city sounds distant, muffled by trees and security, and the bubble of privacy Varic purchased. "What happens when he's older?" Reese asks eventually, when Elijah starts asking questions about how we met, about why his father runs an empire built on fear. We tell him the truth, age-appropriate versions at first, full details when he's ready. Varic stops walking, turns to face Reese. We tell him that the world is cruel to vulnerable people, that power exists whether we like it or not, that choosing to have power means choosing how to use it. And you chose to use it for destruction. I chose to use it for protection. Destruction is just the method. Varic's gaze intensifies. If Elijah grows up knowing he's safe, that his family is protected, that cruelty aimed at him meets consequences, then I've succeeded, even if it means being the monster who makes that possible. Reese understands, doesn't love it, but understands that in Varic's world, softness is a liability and mercy is a weakness that enemies exploit. He'll need balance, Reese says quietly, need to know that power doesn't always mean violence, that protection can look like kindness too. Then you'll teach him that. Balance my darkness with your light. Varic touches Reese's face with surprising gentleness. We'll figure it out together, just like everything else. It's not perfect, not the fairy tale ending that people tell in stories, but it's real, honest, two damaged people building something functional from broken pieces. Elijah stirs in Reese's arms, makes a small sound. Both his fathers immediately focus on him, checking for problems, responding to needs before they're fully expressed. He's going to be so spoiled, Reese observes. He's going to be so protected, Varic corrects. There's a difference. Is there? We'll find out. They return to the penthouse as snow starts falling again. The medical team checks Elijah, confirms he's thriving. Dr. Chen tells Reese he's healing perfectly, that his body is recovering faster than expected. That night, Varic sits in the nursery they've built, painted soft blue, filled with things Elijah will grow into, and holds his son while Reese rests in the next room. You nearly didn't exist, Varic tells the sleeping infant. Your mama nearly gave up, I nearly stayed away. The world nearly succeeded in ending you before you began. Elijah's tiny hand grips Varic's finger, holding on with surprising strength. But you survived anyway, fought your way into existence despite everything trying to stop you. Varic's voice breaks slightly. You're stronger than both of us, braver than you'll ever need to be, and I promise, I swear on everything I've built, that you'll never know what it means to be unprotected. The baby sleeps on, unaware of the vow being made, unaware that his father is crying quietly, something the cold CEO never does in front of anyone else. In the bedroom, Reese lies awake, listening to Varic's whispered promises through the monitor, and despite everything, despite the trauma and pain and impossible circumstances, he smiles. Because cruelty only feels powerful until consequences arrive, until love finds its courage, until two broken people decide that survival isn't enough anymore, that thriving matters too. And they're thriving now, damaged but healing, scared but trying, building something that looks like family from ruins that should have destroyed them. It's not perfect, but it's theirs. And that's enough. Thank you for following this journey from beginning to end. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories that inspire, and please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Remember, survival is power, not shame, and the people who mock you in your lowest moment never deserve access to your highest one.